Hi, Roy here on my channel, Roy Reads Anything, where it might be beginning to look as if I wear the same clothes day after day. That's because we're making a whole bunch of videos at the same time.
That's what he says, but it's
Yeah.
not necessarily true.
Look, this vest is being
Beloved, beloved by the National
the
Trust
toast
people.
of Twitter. This um,
It is a nice
just a
vest.
quick recent reads kind of thing. What have I been reading this week? Well, I've been reading Sax Rohmer's The Insidious Dr. Fu-Manchu for a book club read. So that's still going on, so I won't say anything about that yet because other people are reading it. I think that's the etiquette of book clubs. Um, Also, sort of reading around the subject, The Yellow Peril by Christopher Frayling is subtitled Dr. Fu Manchu and the Rise of Chinophobia. He's kind of giving some sort of history and context of the yellow peril type fiction. So interesting pairing. I'll just share one little detail from this. There's a pretty reasoned argument that PJ Woodhouse and Sax Rohmer both worked in the same bank at the same time, um, and much better evidence also that they both used to submit journalism pieces to publications like Titbits before they made it as authors. So get back to these at some point. Um, Make an interesting pairing with any other Orientalist books I might have. Um, what else? What else? I don't. No, let's not. Don't go there. Don't go there.
No,
We'll start that
I'm not.
again.
No, I'm not going
Um,
there.
Making a bit of progress with my yard of random books. So the yard
Hooray!
of random books is where all this started. Once I've finished it, I can leave BookTube with a clear conscience. So this is where I bought a set of books that were sold as shabby chic decoration to actually read them and see what they're like and sort of think, well, why? How have these poor things? How have they ended up being so worthless that the people only want them for their tatty spines?
It's my own story, exactly.
um, so, God and Evil by C.E.M. Joad, which came out in this edition, 1944. So C.E.M. Joad, not heard of him, but interesting to see his other book titles: Guide to Modern Thought, Return to Philosophy, The Book of Joad, The Testament of Joad. So, a guide to philosophy of morals and politics. So obviously this was someone who was writing about the big stuff. So yeah, obviously he was kind of a celebrity intellectual of the times. And I've looked into him a little bit. He was in the Brains Trust, which was on the radio, and I think on television as well, because there's some footage of the Brains Trust on YouTube. Um, so that was sort of like supposedly knowledgeable team discussing some kind of issue. So I looked at this Joad fellow. The way they've titled some of these books, like the Book of Joad, obviously it's about him and his ideas. Um, his role in it seems to have been, as well as having a beard and smoking a pipe, seems to have been he'd say provocative things, and the others would kind of would kind of talk him down a bit, and it was all very civilized. Um, and he was highly known as this sort of thoughtful fellow of the time, um, who people would buy books like this about. What does Joad tell us about God and evil? The war's finishing. Let's get to grips with the big issues. So thinking, well, why is a book like this now worthless? Well, for a start, it's a book club edition, so these are sort of reprint books, lower production values but high print runs. People would have them on subscription. This is the Religious Book Club, produced to book production war economy standard. So there would have been lots of these, lots of them around. and it's like I said, celebrity intellectual of the past. So like, well, who cares? Sort of all these years later, and sort of thinking about that. Well, like now, there's in sort of 80 years' time, will people still be wanting a Jordan Peterson book or a Naomi Klein book? Maybe not, because they're not like academic books in the sense of being sort of part of that world, and things move on. If you want to wrestle with ideas with philosophy and religion, you probably don't want to know what some guy thought about it in the middle of the 20th century. Is why I think this book has kind of had its day. The fate of Jode was he was eventually sacked by the BBC because of fare dodging on a train. So he was caught fare dodging, fined I think £80, which is a stupendous amount, um, and the BBC terminated his contract. Which some people were outraged by on the basis that, well, he did that and he was punished for that. So
Yes.
why are you punishing him as well?
Gross moral turpitude, though, isn't it?
Well, yeah. So anyway, that was what happened to him. As for this book, he makes a reasoned case for a kind of stance that's just on the more religious side of agnosticism, just to oversimplify it madly. So that's another half inch. I don't feel moved to explore the world of CEM Jode much further. Interesting to have found out who he was. So I think the final fate of this book will be to be consigned back into the wild, into the ebb and flow of things where somebody else can discover it. What else have I been reading? Well, I did mention in an earlier video that I'd bought the greatest science fiction anthology ever published, and I started having a little bit of a read of that. So it's obviously it's a short story collection. It's not really the greatest science fiction anthology ever published, if even such a thing could exist. The idea is it's early work by well-known science fiction writers. So I've read a couple of those. The Fourth Dimensional Demonstrator by Murray Leinster is quite a good humorous story in the kind of King Midas, Sorcerer's Apprentice type of story. It was amusing enough. And then the Isaac Asimov story that apparently is literally the first story he had published in 1939, The Weapon Too Dreadful to Use, is great. I was really surprised. I was squeaking. It's great. Yes, The Weapon Too Dreadful to Use by Isaac Asimov, really good. I was surprised that it's this quite nuanced story about basically Earth as colonized Venus, and the indigenous people like live in like tents and shacks and stuff and are like powerless compared to the humans who kind of promised them loads of things, and now they've come and not given them loads of things, and then the tables are turned, through a surprise event, and it's a really good interplanetary story, very short. So I'm warming to the greatest science fiction anthology ever published. And it's made me think, this is part, I'll get back to this. I'm thinking of doing a series I'll probably call Around My Shelves in 80 Stories, because amongst my many unread books, a lot of them are short story collections. So the plan is, and I'll launch this properly, so you'll hear me say all this again another time. The plan is I work along my shelves in some kind of rational left to right order, going through this room, upstairs, along shelves upstairs, shelves you've never seen. And every time I encounter a collection of short stories, I read one of the stories, you see. So the videos will tell you about the book and about the story I've read. So it'll be a sort of a bit of a book review, but of short, manageable things, and with a little bit of a flavour of Shelf Tour as well. So two things that people on BookTube love, and you're going to get them both from me on my channel. Roy Reads Anything. Okay, so that's a sort of warm up for that. You know, read a short story, tell you about the book. You get the idea. Okay, those are my reads for this week, more or less. Um, Dr. Jenny has been reading a book, but she hasn't finished it yet, so she's not going to tell you anything about it. Yeah, we'll hold that feature, another feature. We're thinking you will hear more from Dr. Jenny. You will see visually. No, I'll say no more. Don't want to give everything away, do we? Okay, good. Right, I think that's all I've got to say at the moment. Yeah, just tidying up. I know some people are worried about the amount of cardboard I'm getting through, so I'm making a concerted effort to keep the same, at least keep the same sign each time. So this should be the sign for note the recycling symbol. We'll try and keep this one in action for as long as possible. Okay, thanks for watching, and see you next time. Yes, maybe in a different sweater. I'm just going to leave it on now, see how long people wait until they turn it off.
Stop torturing them.
Nah, let them do the work.
Yeah,
Why should I go to all the effort of turning off the video when they could perfectly well do that?
Your loyal readers, listeners, watchers, viewers.
Nobody watches till the end. Nobody on earth will ever know that this has ever happened.
That'd be shame.
We could sing a song now, nobody would hear it.
Roy reads anything. Oh, Roy reads anything. Oh, Roy reads anything at all. Da-dum, da-dum.
You could, for instance, you could, for example, sing that as a hypothetical idea, and I'm swearing no one will have heard it. If you do, leave a comment with a musical note emoji. Of course, the battery of the phone will eventually bring this to an end.
Turn it off, for God's sake, man.
Okay, well, it's time to make some tea, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
All right. Okay. I'm pretending I've frozen in place now.
Stop it.
Well, I'm not going to stop it while you're laughing, because that's the thing people like most of all.